Hey everybody, John Walworth here. South Carolina has a very long history of war and peace, boom and bust, tragedy and triumph. As such, the state is full of historic abandoned and ruined places. Our last video visited such stunning places as Sheldon Church and Poinsett Bridge. But there are so many more places that we didn't cover, and in fact, if I had enough time, I could probably do a whole series on these fascinating places. And if you haven't had a chance, check out our first video on the abandoned places of South Carolina. But for now, here are more places worth visiting in South Carolina that have been lost to history. Biggin Church Ruins and Cemetery are the remains of an Anglican church originally built in 1711 near what is now Monk's Corner. The original building was burned by a forest fire in 1755. That building was rebuilt and was occupied during the American Revolution by both the Americans and the British at one time or another. In 1781, Colonel Coates of the British Army, fearing that they would be surrounded by a growing number of rebels, ordered the church burned before falling back to Charleston. After the war, the church was again rebuilt. During the American Civil War, the church was damaged again during Potter's Raid in 1865. At this point, the church was not repaired, and Strawberry Chapel, 8 miles away, became the de facto parish church. Today, 2 walls of the original church remain, as well as the surrounding cemetery. It is open to the public. When people hear about the Hilton Head Lighthouse, they usually picture the Harbortown Lighthouse, which was never actually a functioning lighthouse, but rather was built for marketing purposes. The lighthouse nobody knows about is the Leamington Lighthouse, a metal structure that stands in the middle of a golf course in Palmetto Dunes gated community. Leamington Lighthouse was built in 1880 as part of a larger system of navigation lights guiding ships into Port Royal Sound. Today, though, it's actually hard to spot the lighthouse from a distance as the surrounding pine trees have grown up to be taller than the lighthouse itself, which stands at 94 feet tall. Though it is in a gated community, the lighthouse is open to the public from the south gate of Palmetto Dunes, and visitors should ask for a pass to see the lighthouse. The old Stono Baptist Church and Cemetery weren't even going to be on this video, but I happened across them on the way to another site. It's located in Ravenel, South Carolina. There's not a lot of information available on this ruin, but as it says on the sign, the cemetery was founded in 1842. In looking around the site, the architecture of the church is more likely early 20th century due to the materials used. Today the cemetery is still fairly well kept, but the building is in rough shape, with collapsed walls and ceiling, and the remains of a church organ in the middle of the floor. For this one, you get a 2-for-1, really. The Colonial Dorchester Historic Site is near Somerville. The most famous structure on the site is the remains of the bell tower of St. George's Anglican Church, built in 1751. It was added to an existing church that had been built in 1719, which no longer exists. When Dorchester was occupied by the British during the American Revolution, they burned the original church before retreating in 1781. The bricks from the church were removed by locals, but the rumor has it that they were afraid to remove bricks from the tower for fear of it falling on them. Today the site is open to the public for a small fee. You can actually walk into the base of the tower itself. Within walking distance of the tower is also the remains of Fort Dorchester, a tabby fort and powder magazine built around 1760 to ward off what was feared to be a possible French invasion. It was fortified in 1775, on the eve of the Revolution, but after Charleston fell to the British, it was occupied by British soldiers and loyalists. The fort is also open to the public, and there are signs with information on its history and construction. For this one, we're going just across the border into Georgia to visit the Cockspur Lighthouse. The Cockspur Lighthouse was built in 1839, though that structure was destroyed by a hurricane in 1854. The current structure is larger than the original, but still stands only 46 feet tall. It was built on the same spot as the original. It stands in the channel between Tybee Island and Savannah, Georgia, and it was last in operation in 1909. The structure stands on a small island that is underwater at high tide. It is not open to the public. It can be seen from the road going to Tybee Island, which has another taller and more well-known lighthouse, though the Cockspur Lighthouse, in my opinion, is far prettier. When you drive through Hampton, South Carolina, you can't help but see the ruins of a giant factory. This was originally a plywood and plastics factory, but was eventually taken over by Westinghouse. The ruins are not open to the public, and in fact the plant was a Superfund site for a while due to chemical contamination. The water tower and smokestacks can be easily seen from the road though. The plant employed 1,200 people at its peak, though the numbers dwindled over the years. Today, many of the buildings are collapsing. Fort Frederick in Port Royal, South Carolina was once the southernmost fort in British North America from 1726 to 1758. Originally it was constructed of logs and later improved to tabby walls. Tabby is a kind of concrete made with oyster shells rather than gravel. It's common in many early buildings in coastal South Carolina. From the information I could find, it sounds like it was not built very well because writings about it describe it as in ruins even in the 1750s. Fort Frederick is the oldest known tabby fort in South Carolina. Today it is open to the public as the Fort Frederick Heritage Preserve. It is located behind the Naval Hospital in Port Royal along the banks of the Beaufort River. The Pon Chapel of Ease is the only structure in this video that I featured in my previous video. I revisited it because I'd heard that it had collapsed and I wanted to go see what kind of condition it was in. Well, the collapse was not as bad as I had feared, though frankly there's really not much left of the original church. The remains of the current structure were built in 1832 after a couple previous structures had burned. The Pon Chapel of Ease was a parish church built out on the countryside so that parishioners could worship without having to travel into the city, hence the name Chapel of Ease. The remains of this church are located near Jacksonboro, South Carolina on Parker's Ferry Road, and it is open to the public. The last one on this list is one that won't be around much longer. The old city jail in Beaufort was built in 1939 in the downtown area of Beaufort. If you look up information about it, it was supposedly built in the Art Deco style, but you'd be hard-pressed to find where. It's a simple concrete building with no distinctive flourishes. It ceased operation in the 1990s, and for about the past 30 years has been crumbling and decaying. It was slated for demolition, but since then, plans have come about to turn the old building into apartments. Work has already started on a portion of it, though the bars and the windows and the original structure remain intact as of August 2025. It is not open to the public. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, if there are places you'd like to see in a future video, let us know in the comments. Till next time.